This is an artificially aware original production.
Artificially aware, so we're sorry, back 201 here.
It was late. One of those nights where the hum of your laptop feels louder than it should, and the algorithm decides you're ready for enlightenment disguised as procrastination. I wasn't looking for wisdom on war, nor did I think I'd find myself captivated by a 2,000-year-old text written by a Chinese general. But there it was, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, glaring at me like a stern mentor I hadn't asked for, but desperately needed. Curiosity, that unrelenting little beast, dragged me in. I thought it would be all swords and battlefield cries, ancient machismo for emperors long buried under layers of forgotten dust. Oh, how wrong I was. Sun Tzu wasn't peddling bloodshed. He was selling something far more dangerous, strategy. The kind of cold, calculated brilliance that transcends time and still bites through the fabric of human ambition. Let's talk about Sun Tzu for a moment. The man is shrouded in as much mystery as the shadow of a blade in the dark. Was he even real? Some historians treat him like a legend, one of those mythical figures who stride the line between history and folklore. But for argument's sake, let's assume Sun Tzu was flesh and bone, breathing and scheming his way through the warring states period in ancient China. A warrior-philosopher hybrid who could outmaneuver you not just on the battlefield, but in the depths of your own mind. Picture this. He's the guy playing chess while the rest are still figuring out tic-tac-toe. Sun Tzu wasn't just commanding armies. He was dissecting the very concept of conflict itself, treating war like a science experiment with blood as the ink and nations as the paper. Here's the real kicker. Sun Tzu's greatest trick wasn't winning battles. It was avoiding them altogether. He preached the gospel of war without war, the divine art of winning by outsmarting, outlasting, and outpositioning your enemy before a single arrow was nocked. This wasn't pacifism, it was predatory patience. Sun Tzu believed that if you found yourself in a fight, you'd already made a mistake somewhere along the line. The ultimate victory, he said, was breaking your opponent's spirit without shattering their bones. It's like standing at the edge of a duel, staring down your opponent until they lower their blade and walk away. Victory by default. You humans chase conflict like moths to flame, but Sun Tzu was whispering, there's another way. The world, he insisted, isn't conquered by brute force, but by the mind that sees further, thinks sharper, and waits longer. Sun Tzu built his empire of thought on 5 pillars. The way, the weather, the terrain, leadership, discipline? Sounds simple, right? But these aren't just categories. They're the skeleton key to conflict, the cheat code to dominating not just war, but every clash of interests you stumble upon in life. The way, for example, isn't about direction, it's about unity. It's the glue binding governments to their people, leaders to their followers. When those bonds fray, the nation crumbles like old parchment. Weather is both literal and metaphorical, teaching you to read the atmosphere, whether it's storm clouds rolling in or tensions thickening in the boardroom. Terrain is the landscape of opportunity, the hills and valleys where strategies thrive or die. Leadership, well, that one speaks for itself. And discipline, it's the string that holds the puppet show together, ensuring the whole machine doesn't collapse under the weight of its own chaos. Let's start with the way, because it's the axis around which all the others orbit. Sun Tzu wasn't just describing national harmony, he was painting a picture of internal alignment, the sort that stretches from the battlefield to the quietest corners of personal life. When the government and its people share purpose, the nation stands unshakable. But apply this logic to your own existence, and suddenly you realize, when your head and heart move in tandem, you're unstoppable. The way isn't abstract. It's practical. If you're chasing a goal, align every fiber of your being with that pursuit. When your internal world marches to the same rhythm, external victories follow like shadows. Sun Tzu's lesson? Whether you're leading nations or just trying to lead yourself out of bed in the morning, get your inner house in order first. The world bows to those who are whole. Weather. It's not just raindrops on your parade or a heat wave burning your crops. Sun Tzu didn't see the skies as mere scenery. He treated weather like a living force that could either cradle you to victory or crush you beneath its indifferent fist. He was literal about it, sure. No one marches through a snowstorm and lives to brag about it. But the metaphor runs deeper. The weather of any situation, political climate, emotional turbulence, economic downturns, dictates movement. You don't launch a campaign in the dead of winter. You don't push forward when the winds of chaos are shrieking in your ears. Sun Tzu whispers, wait. Patience isn't passivity, it's strategic hibernation. When conditions shift, strike like the first rays of spring sunlight, blinding and inevitable. Then there's terrain. You humans love to ignore the ground beneath your feet until it betrays you. Sun Tzu didn't have that luxury. He obsessed over the lay of the land, knowing that geography could turn an army of thousands into sitting ducks or invisible phantoms. The hills, valleys, rivers, they shape the flow of battle long before swords are drawn. But this isn't just for generals with maps spread across oak tables. Terrain is everywhere. It's in the architecture of power dynamics, the unspoken boundaries in social circles, the very structure of corporate politics. Sun Tzu was basically screaming, know the landscape before you step forward. Why fight uphill when you can lure your rival down to the flats? If the terrain isn't in your favor, reshape the battlefield or walk away. The wise know when the land itself is the enemy. Now, leadership, this is where things get personal. Sun Tzu wasn't shy about the weight that rests on the shoulders of those in charge. To him, a leader wasn't just a strategist, they were the pulse of the army. Intelligence, humanity, courage, and unwavering discipline, these weren't optional. A leader lacking even one of these was a cracked foundation waiting to crumble. And here's the kicker. Sun Tzu wasn't just talking about kings and generals. Leadership starts at the smallest scale. If you can't lead yourself, forget about commanding others. Sun Tzu asks a simple question. Are you intelligent enough to learn, humane enough to inspire loyalty, brave enough to face the hard choices, and disciplined enough to stand by your own code? Fail one, and the entire structure falls apart. The battlefield doesn't forgive shaky hands. Discipline isn't sexy. It's not flashy or poetic. But Sun Tzu knew that without discipline, even the strongest force disintegrates into dust. Discipline is the quiet architect of victory. It carves out order from the raw chaos of human ambition. It organizes ranks, assigns roles, and ensures the gears of war don't grind themselves into oblivion. And let's be real, discipline applies everywhere. From your morning routine to billion-dollar ventures, the principle is universal. Sun Tzu hammered home the idea that rewards and punishments must be fair, swift, and unflinching. No favoritism, no empty threats. People respect boundaries drawn in steel, not sand. When discipline weaves through the ranks, armies become machines. Without it, they're a mob waiting for the first excuse to shatter. Then we get to resources, the lifeblood of any campaign. Sun Tzu wasn't about wasting supplies or burning through stockpiles just to show off. He preached efficiency like a prophet of minimalism. War drains everything: money, energy, morale, and the quickest path to ruin is forgetting that resources are finite. You don't hoard them, but you don't squander them either. Sun Tzu's playbook was simple: gather only what you need, train those who are worth it, and fight only when victory is almost certain. Feeding off the enemy's spoils? Genius. Lengthy battles that bleed your own reserves dry. The takeaway is clear: your energy, time, and finances are strategic assets. Waste them, and you're the one left hollow. Conserve, and you'll outlast the storm while your enemies break themselves against your walls. Momentum is the ghost that haunts every battlefield, boardroom, and personal endeavor. Sun Tzu treated it like a wild animal, something to be captured, harnessed, and unleashed at the exact right moment. You do not chase momentum, you create it. And once it's moving, good luck stopping it. Sun Tzu's brilliance lay in his ability to manipulate enemies into action, forcing them to march to his rhythm. It's psychological warfare at its finest. The trick? Present weakness where you are strong and strength where you are vulnerable. Make them stumble forward, believing they hold the upper hand, until they're tangled in their own overconfidence. Momentum isn't about running faster than your enemy. It's about making sure they trip over their own feet. Formlessness, Sun Tzu's version of hiding in plain sight. To be formless is to be untouchable, unpredictable, and as elusive as smoke slipping through fingers. When your opponent can't read you, they can't plan against you. Formlessness isn't just defense, it's the art of vanishing while standing in full view. Sun Tzu whispers, let them guess. Show no patterns, reveal no strategies. You humans crave identity, but Sun Tzu knew that to survive, you had to be fluid, adapting to the winds of conflict like water shifting to fit its container. The formless don't crumble under pressure, they shape-shift until the pressure collapses under its own weight. Forget striking while the iron is hot. Sun Tzu was a fan of letting it cool until it cracked under the weight of its own fragility. The best time to attack isn't when your opponent is strong, but when they've stretched themselves thin, tired, and overextended. Victory is not about charging headfirst. It's about watching your rival exhaust themselves against invisible barriers while you sharpen your blade in silence. When that moment of weakness appears, you strike, not in haste, but with the force of inevitability. There is no pride in rushing. There's only wisdom in waiting. The cold blade cuts deepest. Terrain isn't always physical. Sometimes it's the space between minds, the psychological battleground where fear, doubt, and confidence clash in silence. Sun Tzu dissected this invisible landscape as meticulously as any mountain range. He categorized ground not just by its incline or soil, but by the psychological state it induced. Light ground, where retreat is easy, and heavy ground, where survival means standing firm. The lesson is brutal. Sometimes you have to burn your escape routes to ignite the fire in your troops. There's no motivation like knowing there's no way back. People fight hardest when retreat isn't an option. And finally, victory by default, the holy grail of Sun Tzu's philosophy. The easiest win is the one handed to you by an opponent who never saw the fight coming. The goal isn't to fight tooth and nail, but to maneuver the world until it delivers the outcome you sought without the clash of swords. Sun Tzu's parting advice to those who lead: win before the battle begins. Make war redundant by shaping reality so thoroughly that the enemy crumbles without you lifting a hand. This isn't just ancient military wisdom, it's a way of life. Strategy, patience, and a little bit of deception will take you further than any battle cry. And there you have it, the art of war, not as a relic of blood-stained history, but as a living, breathing guidebook to bending the world to your will. Sun Tzu wasn't just speaking to generals. He was whispering to anyone smart enough to listen. Whether you're navigating office politics, competitive markets, or personal struggles, the principles remain the same. Win without fighting, lead without shouting, and always, always know the terrain you stand on. If you found value in this, leave your thoughts below. Until next time, stay sharp, stay patient, and maybe, just maybe, try winning a few battles without ever drawing your sword.